Hello and welcome to another video brought to you by Dorkdom Gaming. Today's video is going to be about the Daemons of Khorne, and we're going to do a complete overview, and we're also going to do battle tactics in which I use to crush my opponents using the Daemons of Khorne. So without further ado, let's begin. The first battalion we're going to talk about today is the Bloodthirster of Khorne. It costs 120 points, and it consists of one Bloodthirster and 7 more units chosen in any combination. Now the list consists of a Bloodletter hero, a Bloodthirster, Bloodletters, Blood Crushers, Skull Cannons, and Flesh Hounds. Now the abilities are, in each of your hero phases, pick D3 units from the Bloodthirster of Khorne that are within 3 inches of an enemy. All models in the unit can immediately pile in and attack with one of their melee weapons. Increase the number of units that can attack from D3 to D6 if there are 16 or more units in this battalion. Now this battalion is one of those battalions that are very tactical. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure if you're taking this battalion, you want to give your opponent the opportunity to charge you as long as you know you're guaranteed to get the next turn. For the reason as once they charge you, of course they do their damage because they probably think they can kill you, and then you get a swing back. And then instantly, you roll on your beginning of your hero phase, you roll D3 units and you tell that unit that he couldn't kill to attack him again. And then after that, you also get another combat phase, and then you get to attack again. And this is one of those battalions that can be kind of sneaky and kind of tricky, and your opponent might not see it coming. And it's also good for putting like a unit of Bloodletters in front of your big Bloodthirster, but make sure your Bloodthirster is within 3 inches of the front of the closest Bloodletter so that he can always pile in, and then in your hero phase he can pile in again, and then in your combat phase he can pile in again. So tactically, this is an incredible battalion for 120 points. And considering you're probably taking an entire combat army if you're taking this battalion, due to the fact that you need 8 war scrolls that all consist of melee attacks, this is an awesome battalion. The next battalion we're going to talk about today is called the Daemons of Khorne. Now this battalion only costs 80 points, and it consists of 6 different war scrolls. The first war scroll can either be a Bloodthirster of Insistent Rage, or a Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury, or a Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster, or a Khorne Demon Prince. The next war scroll can either be a Bloodthrone of Khorne, or Herald of Khorne, or Herald of Khorne on a Juggernaut. The next 3 war scrolls have to be Bloodletters of Khorne. And the last war scroll can either be a unit of Flesh Hounds, Skull Cannons of Khorne, or Blood Crushers of Khorne. Now this battalion has 2 abilities. You can add 1 to any wound rolls in the combat phase for each model in this battalion as long as it charged in that turn. You can also roll a dice at the end of the combat phase for each unit in the battalion that wiped out an enemy unit during this phase. On a 6, that unit can immediately pile in and attack again. Now as we all know, Khorne is all about getting in there and doing as much damage as possible. Now, being able to add 1 to any of your wound rolls for that turn that you charged is awesome, considering that most Khorne models wound either on a 4 or 3. Being able to automatically wound on a 3 or a 2 is game changing a lot of times. Plus, there's a little extra flavor. You know, yeah, it's a roll of a 6, and it's not going to happen often, and most of the time if you are wiping out a unit, most of the time there's not another unit within 3 inches, but if there is, it's almost like a bowling ball effect, and being able to count as charging that turn and +1 to wound, you can really do a lot of damage for only 80 points, especially if your theme is to take mostly Khorne models. This can be really awesome for you. Alright, so the first war scroll we're going to talk about today is your main battle line. They are your Bloodletters. They move 5 inches, they have a 5-up save, they have bravery 10, and they have 1 wound. They're equipped with what we call a Hellblade. The Hellblade has a 1-inch range with 1 attack, it hits on 4s, it wounds on 3s, it does -1 to their rend, and does 1 damage. Now this war scroll costs 100 points, and you get 10 models. You could, of course, go up to the maximum of 30 models if you so choose. Now the champion has 2 attacks rather than 1, and the icon bearer actually can choose between 2 different banners. The Hornblower has the ability that your opponent must reroll Battle Shock test of a 1 for units that are within 6 inches of any Hornblower. Now the abilities of the actual Bloodletters are: if a hit roll for a Hellblade is a 6 or more, that blow inflicts a mortal wound instead of normal damage. Now the first choice of banner is: if you roll a 1 when making a Battle Shock test for a unit that includes that banner, you can add D6 Bloodletters back to your unit. Now the next banner you can choose is each time your unit containing that banner slays a hero, add 1 to any charge rolls you make for the rest of the battle. Now, keywords are extremely important when building a Age of Sigmar army, and you have to pay attention to keywords. Like this Bloodletter unit has Chaos, Demon, Khorne, and Bloodletters. So the next ability is the Locus of Fury. You can re-roll hit rolls of a 1 for this unit if there is a Demon hero of Khorne from your army within 8 inches of this unit. So it's very important to make sure the keywords all stack when making your army and keeping that, Demon Khorne hero within 8 inches so that you actually get to re-roll your hit rolls of a 1. Just a little added flavor. The next ability is Bloodletters attacking in mass terrify your opponents. You can add 1 to your hit rolls made for Bloodletters if it contains 20 or more models. Now all of your casters will know the Summon Bloodletter special rule, and it's a casting value of a 6, and you get 10 Bloodletters 16 inches away or within 16 inches of your caster, but you have to stay outside of 9 inches away from your enemy units. Now if you happen to roll 11 or more, you gain 20 Bloodletters. Now, like I said in the beginning, Bloodletters are your bread and butter. They're your core. They're awesome also. They have 1 attack, they do -1 rend, they're only doing 1 damage, but again, you can stack a lot of things on top of each other. Plus, if you ever roll a 6, you're doing a mortal wound, so they're also extremely strong. Plus, if you have your Khorne hero, you're re-rolling your hits of 1s. Also, if you have a 20 or more Bloodletters, you can add 1 to roll a hit, so now you're hitting on 3s and wounding on 3s. And also, if you decided to take that 1 battalion that I spoke to before, that cost 80 points, now you're hitting on 2s, you're wounding on 2s the turn you charge. So now you're hitting on 3s, you're wounding on 2s, you're re-rolling your hits of a 1 that you happen to fail. Anytime you roll a 6 when you hit, you're inflicting mortal wounds, and if you're not inflicting mortal wounds, you're just still doing -1 damage. So Bloodletters are awesome, and they're well worth their points. The next war scroll we're going to talk about today is the Bloodmaster, the Herald of Khorne. Now this war scroll costs 80 points, and his keywords are Chaos, Demon, Bloodletter, Khorne, Hero, and Bloodmaster. Now he moves 5 inches, he has a 4-up save with Bravery 10 and 5 wounds. His weapon has a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. His abilities are, whenever he rolls a hit roll of a 6, his weapon does a mortal wound instead of regular damage. His next ability is, after a Bloodmaster attacks in the combat phase, you can pick another Bloodletter unit within 8 inches. That unit can immediately pile in and attack if it's within 3 inches of an enemy and has not already attacked in that phase. Now all of your casters will know the Summon Bloodmaster special rule, and it's a casting value of a 5, and you get a Bloodmaster within 16 inches of your caster but more than 9 inches away from your enemy units. Now like I said earlier, Bloodmasters are quite essential to a lot of your units that require the keywords so that your Bloodletters can actually reroll their hits of a 1. And also that cool ability where after your Herald has swinged, instead of your opponent gets to swing, you say, nah, my Bloodletters are going to swing again, and just kill your unit before you have a chance. Definitely some really cool abilities. The next war score we're going to talk about today are Flesh Hounds. Now that's 100 points and you get 5 models to a maximum of 20 models. The keywords are Chaos, Demon, Khorne, and Flesh Hounds. Now Flesh Hounds have the ability of becoming battle line if your general is the special character Karnak. Now Flesh Hounds move 8 inches, they have a 5-up save, Bravery 10, and 2 wounds. Their weapon has a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, does no rend, and does 1 damage. Their abilities are, this unit can unbind 1 spell in each of your enemy hero phases. If there are 10 or more models, you gotta add +1 to your unbinding attempts. You can re-roll failed charge rolls for this unit. Also, you can re-roll failed unbinding attempts if you have a Demon Hero of Khorne within 8 inches of your unit. Now all of your casters are going to know the Summon Flesh Hound spell, and it's a casting value of a 6, and you get 5 Flesh Hounds within 16 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit. And if you happen to roll 11 or more, you actually get 10 Flesh Hounds. Now Flesh Hounds to me are quite awesome. The ability of re-rolling failed charge means you have a better chance of getting there quickly. Plus, a lot of times when you're trying to figure out a way of unbinding an enemy spell, you don't really want to get your casters near their casters normally, because your casters are kind of, weak normally. They don't pack a punch. They're supposed to cast. But Flesh Hounds not only can unbind spells, they're pretty decent. I mean, they have 4 attacks each. They hit on 3s, they wound on 4s, they're doing quite a bit of damage. Yeah, they don't do any rend, so they're not taking down those really high armor safe models, but they're perfect for going after archers and maybe after their casters, and also stopping them from being able to cast spells, especially if you know your opponent's taking a high casting army. This is almost a must take, at least 1 unit of them, to get them up there to stop your enemy from casting, to do some damage, to cause havoc. The next War Scroll is Karnak. His keywords are Chaos, Demon, Khorne, Fleshhounds, and of course Karnak. His War Scroll costs 100 points. He moves 8 inches, has a 4-up save with Bravery 10 and 5 wounds. He has 2 close combat attacks. The first one is a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, does no rend, and does 1 damage. The next melee attack has a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, does -1 rend, and does D3 damage. His abilities are Karnak can unbind 1 spell in each of your enemy hero phases, as if he was a wizard. If he successfully unbinds a spell, the caster immediately suffers D3 mortal wounds. His next ability is, after setup is complete, you can pick 1 enemy hero to be Karnak's quarry. Now, Karnak has the ability of rerolling his hit and wound rolls when he attacks that model. His last ability is Call of the Hunt. Once per game, if Karnak is within 8 inches of his quarry during the hero phase, you can set up a unit of Fleshhounds anywhere within 8 inches of Karnak. This unit is added to your army, but cannot move in the following movement phase. Now, this guy seems kind of cool. I mean, first of all, he makes all of your Fleshhounds battle line, which is awesome. You know, being able to break the mold of only taking Bloodletters, but also the ability of getting him close to an enemy wizard and going, okay, I dare you to cast, because I'm good at rolling dice. I'm gonna stop your spell, and then after I stop your spell, you're gonna take D3 mortal wounds. Plus, he has the ability of rerolling his hits and wounds against 1 hero, maybe somebody who you just want to take out as quickly as possible and get up there and stop your opponent from casting spells. The next War Scroll is Blood Crushers. Now, Blood Crushers keywords are Chaos, Demon, Bloodletter, Khorne, and Blood Crusher. Now, Blood Crushers War Scroll is 160 points, and you get 3 models to a maximum of 12 models. Now, Blood Crushers can also be considered battle line, but your army has to be a Khorne Demon Allegiance, and your general has to be either a Skullmaster or a Herald of Khorne. Now, Blood Crushers move 8 inches. They have a 4-up save. They're Bravery 10, and they have 4 wounds. They have 2 close combat attacks. The first one is a Hellblade, a 1-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The next one is a 1-inch range with 3 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, no rend, and does 1 damage. Your champion has 2 attacks. Your Icon Bearer. Whenever your unit takes a Battle Shock test and you roll a 1, you add D3 Bloodletters back to your unit. Your Hornblower. Your opponents must reroll Battleshock test of a 1 for units that are within 6 inches of your Hornblower. You have 3 abilities. The first one is, if you roll a hit roll with your Hellblade of a 6, you cause a mortal wound. Your next ability. After this unit completes a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch. On a roll of a 4 up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Your next ability, you can reroll all failed hit rolls for a unit that charged in that turn if there is a demon hero of Khorne from your army within 8 inches. All of your casters will know the Summon Blood Crusher special rule. It's a casting value of a 6, and you get 1 Blood Crusher within 16 inches, but more than 9 inches away from enemy unit. If your caster happens to roll a 10 or higher, you get 3 Blood Crushers instead. Now, Blood Crushers. Now, I was a little confused when I read the Summon Blood Crusher, because if you summon 1 Blood Crusher, but the minimum size unit is 3, would you have to put to the side 160 points because 1 model counts as all 3? I think that might be a typo. Maybe you can leave a comment below if it is or if it's not. But Blood Crushers, let's look at them. It's 160 points. We'll compare them to Bloodletters. 160 points. There are 4 wounds a pop, so that's 12 wounds. So you get 2 more wounds. Yeah, you're paying 60 more points, but they're faster than Bloodletters. They have a better save than Bloodletters. They also have that really cool ability is after you charge on a roll of a 4-up, that unit suffers D3 wounds. So I think it's really just a flavor choice for a lot of people. The next War Scroll is Skullmaster. His keywords are Chaos, Demon, Bloodletter, Khorne, Hero, and Skullmaster. This War Scroll costs 100 points. It moves 8 inches, has a 4-up save, bravery 10 and 6 wounds. He has 2 close combat attacks. The first one is Blade of Blood, a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. His mounts attacks are a 1-inch range with 3 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, no rend, and does 1 damage. His abilities are, you can reroll all failed hit rolls for this model if it charged in the same turn. The next ability, if your Blade of Blood rolls a 6 or more, it causes a mortal wound instead. Your next ability, after this model completes a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch. On a roll of a 4 or more, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. Now all of your casters will know the Summon Skullmaster special rule, and it's a casting value of a 5, and you get 1 Skullmaster within 16 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from enemy unit. Now, Skullmaster, I mean, what can we really say? You know, he's a hero. He's going to hit pretty hard. He brings the cool ability on a charge, on a 4-up, causing D3 mortal wounds. He has some nice abilities at re-rolling all his failed rolls to hit, which is not bad. The next War Scroll is the Blood Throne. His keywords are Chaos Demon, Bloodletter, Khorne, Hero, Blood Throne. This War Scroll costs 120 points. It moves 8 inches with a 4-up save, bravery 10 and 7 wounds. We have 3 close combat attacks. The first one is a Blade of Blood, a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The next attack is called the Hellblades. It's a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The next attack is Gnashing Maw, a 1-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does D3 damage. The abilities are Gorefest. The Blood Throne heals a wound at the end of the combat phase for each wound that is inflicted by its Gnashing Maw. The next ability is, if a hit roll with the Blade of Blood rolls a 6 or more, it inflicts mortal wounds. Now all of your casters will know the Summon Blood Throne, and it's a casting value of an 8, and you get a Blood Throne within 16 inches, but more than 9 inches away from enemy unit. Now Blood Thrones are actually awesome. I mean, they're a hero, they're Khorne, and they're going to give your bonuses to all your Blood Crushers, your Bloodletters. Anyone who needs that model to be within 8 inches is really cool. It's a nice supporter unit, it hits decently hard, it's pretty quick, it has a lot of wounds, it's hard to kill. The next War Scroll are Skull Cannons. Their keywords are Chaos Demon, Bloodletter, Khorne, and Skull Cannons. This War Scroll costs 180 points. They move 8 inches, they have a 4-up save, bravery 10 and 7 wounds. Their missile weapon is the Burning Skull, a 30-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -2 rend, and does D6 damage. The close combat attacks are a Hellblade, a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The Gnashing Maw, a 1-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does D3 damage. The abilities are, when a Skull Cannon shoots the Burning Skull, add 1 to the hit roll if the target contains 10 or more models. The next ability, if the Skull Cannon's Gnashing Maw causes any wounds in the combat phase, at the end of that phase, you can make a Burning Skull attack as though it was in the shooting phase. Next ability, if a hit roll by the Hellblade is a 6 or more, it inflicts a mortal wound. Now all of your casters are going to know the Summon Skull Cannon special rule. It's a casting value of an 8, and you get a Skull Cannon within 16 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from your enemy unit. Now, I can't tell you how awesome Skull Cannons are. It's one of the only things, well, literally, I think it's the only thing that shoots a D6 attack from 30 inches away. And if you're targeting a unit that's 10 or more models, you're hitting on a 2, you're wounding on a 3, you're doing -2 to their armor save, and you're causing lots and lots of damage. And there's still no jump in combat. If you charge them in there, they have their 2 attacks, they have their Gnashing Maw, and then if you happen to do any wounds with the Gnashing Maw, you're shooting again. I mean, Skull Cannons are awesome. Deleting targets one after another, you must take them. The next War Scroll is Skulltaker. His keywords are Chaos Demon, Bloodletter, Khorne, Hero, and Skulltaker. His War Scroll costs 100 points. He moves 5 inches. He has a 4-up save with bravery 10 and 5 wounds. His close combat weapon has a 1-inch range with 3 attacks. He hits on 3s, he wounds on 3s, he -1 rend, and he does 3 damage. His abilities are, you can reroll failed save rolls for Skulltaker. His next ability, if a hit roll for his weapon is a 6 or more, it inflicts 3 mortal wounds versus 3 normal wounds. Also, His next ability is you can reroll all failed hit and wound rolls when Skulltaker targets a hero. Skulltaker deletes characters, and he's also harder to kill due to the fact that he has a rerollable 4-up. Plus, if he happens to roll a 6, he's doing lots of damage. You need to accompany him next to a unit of Bloodletters to give the Bloodletters the benefit from being close to a hero, along with Skulltaker's going to go ahead and delete characters for you. The next war scroll is the Bloodthirster of Insistent Rage. His keywords are Chaos, Demon, Khorne, Monster, Hero, Bloodthirster of Insistent Rage. His war scroll costs 280 points. His movement value starts at a 10, and as he starts taking damage, it goes to a 9, to an 8, to a 7, and following a 6, but again starts at a 10. His save is a 4-up. His bravery is 10, and he has 14 wounds. His Great Axe of Khorne has a 2-inch range, and his attacks start with 4 attacks, then it goes down to 3, and then from 3 to 2, but again it starts at 4. It hits on a 4, it wounds on a 2, it minuses 2 to the rend, and does d6 damage each. Now this Bloodthirster can fly. His first ability is, you can reroll the hit rolls of a 1 for the Great Axe of Khorne if this model has charged in the same turn. The next ability, if a wound roll for the Great Axe of Khorne is a 6 or more, each enemy unit within 8 inches of the Bloodthirster suffers a number of mortal wounds. The number of mortal wounds are shown on the table above. Now the number of mortal wounds starts at a 3, then goes down to a D3, then it goes down to a 1. Now his command ability. If this Bloodthirster of Insistent Rage uses this ability, then in your next charge phase, you can re-roll the dice to determine the charge distance for any Khorne demon unit within 8 inches. Now all of your casters are going to know the Summon Bloodthirster Rage spell, and it's a casting value of a 10, and you get 1 Bloodthirster within 16 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from enemy unit. This Bloodthirster has no frills, no thrills. His job is to go in the middle of your opponent's army and do as much damage as possible, trying to roll as many 6s as possible to do an 8-inch bubble of mortal wounds, along with his own -2 rend d6 damage he has each. I mean, this Bloodthirster just made there to go in and just punch your opponent so hard he regrets even fighting you. The next war scroll is the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. The keywords are Chaos, Demon, Khorne, Monster, Hero, Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. Now this war scroll costs 300 points. His movement value starts at 10 inches and goes to 9, from 8 to 7 to 6, but again starts at 10 inches. His save is a 4-up save with Bravery 10 and 14 wounds. He has Missile Attack. It's an 8-inch range that starts with 4 attacks and goes from 3 down to 2 down to 1, but again starts at 4 attacks. It hits on 4s, it wounds on 3s, it does -1 rend and does d3 damage. His close combat attack is a 2-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 2s, but goes from 2s to 3s, from 3s to 4s, but again starts at 2s, does -2 to the rend and does d3 damage. Now this Bloodthirster can fly. His abilities are, if this Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury hits an enemy hero or monster with his Lash of Khorne attack, which is his missile attack, but does not kill it, roll a dice at the end of the shooting phase and move that model that many inches directly towards the Bloodthirster. The model can be moved within 3 inches of the Bloodthirster. His next ability. At the beginning of your hero phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 8 inches. On a 6 or more, that unit suffers a mortal wound and halves its move until the next hero phase. His command ability. If the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury uses this ability, then until your hero's next hero phase, Khorne demon units within 8 inches of this model then pile in and can move up to 6 inches instead of 3. Now all of your casters will know the Bloodthirster of Fury special rule, and it's a casting value of 10, and if successfully cast, you get a Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury within 16 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Now this Bloodthirster is quite unique. He has a shooting ability, and he's still great in combat. It's kind of a mixture, plus the ability of, hey, I want that monster not to run away from me. You're going to come with me after I shoot you with my Lash of Khorne attack, plus the slight chance of having people's movement when they're within 8 inches of you, on top of your command ability, allowing a pile-in of 6 inches, which can be useful if you have a lot of models, so let's say 30, Bloodletters, and you really need to wrap your models around your enemy unit, and you happen to be within 8 inches of this Bloodthirster. This is definitely a Bloodthirster that is more tricky than the conventional just run up and hit you as hard as you can, so use them wisely. The next war scroll I want to talk about today is the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster. Now this Bloodthirster's keywords are Chaos Demon, Khorne, Monster Hero, and Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster. His war scroll costs 360 points. His movement value starts at a 10, then goes to a 9, to an 8, to a 7, to 6, but again starts at a 10. He has a 4-up save with Bravery 10 and 14 wounds. He has 2 missile weapons attacks. His first one is called the Hell Breath, and it's an 8-inch range and 1 attack. In your shooting phase, the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster can breathe a roaring blast of hellfire. Pick a unit within the range that is visible to the Bloodthirster. That unit just suffers D3 mortal wounds. His next close missile weapon is called the Blood Flail, and it's a 12-inch range with 1 attack that hits on a 3, that wounds on a 3, that does -1 to the rend, and it damages starts at a 6, then from a 6 to a 3, from a 3 to a D3, but again it starts at doing just 6 wounds by itself. The next close combat attack is the Mighty Axe of Khorne, and that's a 2-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s and wounds on 2s. Now it wounds from a 2 to a 3, from a 3 to a 4, but again it starts at wounding on a 2. It does -2 rend and does D3 wounds. Now this Bloodthirster can fly, and he has a couple abilities. His first one is you can reroll any failed hit rolls when you're attacking either a hero or a monster. His next ability, a Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster can attempt to unbind 1 spell in each of your hero phases as if it was a hero, and adds 2 to the result of any unbinding rolls that it makes. His command ability, if the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster uses this ability, select a Khorne demon within 16 inches. Until your next hero phase, that unit can run and charge in the same turn, and can add 1 to the run and charge rolls. Now all of your casters are going to know the Summon Bloodthirster of Wrath, and it's a casting value of a 10, and you get a Bloodthirster within 16 inches, but more than 9 inches away from enemy unit. This Bloodthirster is one of my favorites because he's a little bit tricky. He has really great shooting, has decent combat. The fact that his command ability is going to give one of my Khorne Demon units the ability running and charging in one turn really can surprise your opponent, because every turn you're changing it to a different unit, allowing it to run +1 and then charge +1. Plus, then you're flying him next to a unit and automatically doing D3 wounds when you're within 8 inches. And sometimes when you hit with your Blood Flail and you're doing 6 wounds, then you charge in, you're doing a ton of damage. And the big thing with these models, it's hard to unbind spells because your casters are always hiding away from your enemy casters because your casters are fragile. But with this Bloodthirster, you're not. I mean, you're going in there and you're going right next to their casters, and you're like, okay, I'm +2 to dispel your stuff, right? Plus I'm going to shoot you and I'm going to kill you. So definitely this is going to be one of those Bloodthirsters that I see in a lot of my battles, and I really enjoy playing. The next war scroll we're going to talk about today is Skaar Brand. His keywords are Chaos Demon, Khorne, Monster Hero, Bloodthirster, and Skaar Brand. His war scroll costs 400 points. He moves 8 inches with a 4-up save with Bravery 10 and 14 wounds. He has 2 close combat attacks. His first one's called Slaughter. It's a 2-inch range with 4 attacks, and as he gets angrier, it goes from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, but again it starts at 4. He hits on 4s, he wounds on 3s, he does -2 to the rend, and he does 3 damage. His next close combat attack is called Carnage, and it's a 2-inch range with 1 attack that hits on a 4, and it wounds on a 5, and as he gets angrier, it goes from a 5 to a 4 to a 3 to a 2 to a 1, but again it starts at a 5. His abilities are, the angrier that Skaar Brand gets, the more dangerous he becomes in each of your hero phases. Look on Skaar Brand's damage table to see his current level of rage. If Skaar Brand was not able to attack in at least one of the combat phases in the previous battle round, he is always considered incandescent. Regardless of the wounds he has remaining, nothing makes Skaar Brand angrier than not being able to fight. Skaar Brand can use his rage to fuel one or more of the following abilities. Each can only be used once per battle round. The effects of these abilities last until your next hero phase, with the exception of Roar the Total Rage, which is resolved immediately. If Skaar Brand is angry, he can use 1 ability. If he is furious, he can use 2 abilities. If he is seething, he can use 3 abilities. If he is enraged, he can use 4 abilities. If he is incandescent, he can use 5 abilities. Now here are the abilities. Make a Roar of Total Rage. Now that is, if Skaar Brand makes a Roar of Total Rage, pick a unit within 8 inches. Roll 1 dice if Skaar Brand is angry, 2 if he's furious, 3 if he's seething, 4 if he's enraged, 5 if he's incandescent. Each roll of a 4 or more inflicts 1 mortal wound on that unit. His next ability is re-roll the dice to determine Skaar Brand's charge distance. The next ability is re-roll all failed hit rolls made by Slaughter. The next ability is re-roll all failed hit rolls made by Carnage. The next ability, re-roll all failed wound rolls made by Slaughter. The next ability, re-roll the dice to determine Skaar Brand inflicts total carnage. Now total carnage. Roll a dice each time Skaar Brand hits a target with the Axe of Carnage. If the roll is greater than or equal to the result shown in the damage table, the hit is caused total carnage, and one enemy model in the target unit loses 8 wounds, or is slain if it has 8 wounds or fewer. No saves can be taken against total carnage. There is no escape in his Axe of Wrath. If the roll is less than the result shown on the table, the hit inflicts 1 mortal wound instead. Now, Skaar Brand is awesome. He is probably one of the strongest close combat attack Bloodthirsters run. Yes, he does not fly, but in combination with other Bloodthirsters, allowing them to, let's say, run and charge, and you can use a total of two Bloodthirsters to do a lot of damage. And the big thing is, just don't let him get in combat first turn. Let your opponents go first. That way, you're as angry as possible when it's your turn, and you can choose 5 abilities. You're gonna, as soon as he gets in combat, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. He does so much damage. Get him in there and tell me what you think. We just did a complete overview of the Daemons of Khorne, and man, are they awesome. If you guys like these kind of videos, please leave a like and a comment below.